Hello everyone, welcome back to another Strategoi video. Ryan today, back again, this time without Jonas, but I was so grateful to have him on the Corn video yesterday, and we'll be getting him back for his main armies too, so it won't be too long now, considering none of them have had an article yet. That would be Lumineth, Soulblight, Seraphon, and Sylvaneth. But today we're going to be focusing on KO. So yeah, it's looking pretty good. I haven't looked at anything yet, so as you guys know, we are live reacting to these things. If that's not your style, I totally get it, but glad to have you guys here in any case to watch as I process these things in real time. I am a KO player, but I haven't played it a single time in 4th edition. It was actually my most played faction in 3rd edition, and was a big favorite of mine. But when they switched the rules and the way that being in ships works or doesn't work anymore, and then all the redeploy tricks, it just isn't really my thing. That said, I am excited about the new Battle Tome. I'm excited about potential terrain piece and maybe even like some, I don't know, their version of endless spells could be cool. So yeah, pretty excited about what could be happening in a new book, even if it stays the same. If you know, I'll probably just throw it out on the table and give it a shot finally. But right now, it's not exactly my favorite. But let's see what kind of updates we get today. And remember, these updates we get will be applicable for the whole year of the next season. So even if the Battle Tome came out a little bit afterwards, these rules would be applicable to the current index until the Battle Tome comes out, and then we just swap from the index to the Battle Tome, but these rules would still stay in place. And that's true of any army that's going to get a book sometime in the near future. We know Nighthaunt's got a book coming, Ideneth, KO, Khorne, and Feck, most of which we've actually seen articles for already, so that's interesting. Okay, before I forget, just don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, get the word out there, and let us know what you think of this video. All right, so here we go. Another video for KO, and then we're going to scroll down and see what kind of clues we get. It looks like we don't have any kind of GHB update, but we do have 2 battle profiles, and then we've got a hint here. If you've got a pile of teeth lying around, though, come back tomorrow because you might find yourself a bargain. I'm going to admit, I don't know the lore 100% on this, but that sounds like an Ironjawz thing for me. Do they trade in teeth? That seems logical. I don't think it's ogres. It doesn't seem like it would be Gargants, but someone let me know. Maybe I'm totally bad on the lore on this one, but maybe that's an Ironjawz thing. But let's focus on what's going on with KO. All right, so we've got 2 new War Scrolls. One is for the Gunhauler, which, as far as I'm aware, only changed in terms of its new option to be reinforced, even though it has a unit size of 1, which is pretty unique in the game. So even though you don't see it written on the War Scroll, anything that comes in a unit size of 1 cannot be reinforced. Obviously, heroes, that doesn't really make sense that you would reinforce them, but sometimes you're looking at a chariot or whatever, you're like, oh, that'd be cool to have a unit of 2. Well, now you can take a unit of 2 Gunhaulers, which is kind of cool. That's the first time I'm aware of that we've ever had that rule. And then if we look over at the Codright, the points went up a bit. The Codright was at 80 points, so we're up 30 points. But all the rest of the keywords are the same, and in fact, he stays an Italics hero that can be taken as a guild officer by another hero that's, I guess, above his pay grade. So anyway, let's go look at those 2 War Scrolls. Okay, so first, starting with the Gunhauler. Anyone that's been keeping up with KO knows that of the 3 different boats, this one has gotten the least amount of love recently because it kind of hasn't been acting as what you need for the army, considering how low drops oriented the game is right now, how its transport capacity hasn't been all that great, that it doesn't have that much output. It wasn't really adding a whole lot unless you really just needed to add those points in to your army. You had some spare points lying around, but then why wouldn't you take maybe some balloon boys or whatever else that might synchronize better with your army? But anyway, synergize, I mean. But anyway, so the Gunhauler, taking a look at the weapon wheel, got plus 2-inch move, but stayed at 10 health, 2 control, and a 3-up save. If we go look at the controls, the keywords down below, we're looking at still War Machine, Fly, Order, KHARADRON Overlords, Dwarden, and Sky Vessel. Nothing particularly new there. And then let's see. In terms of how it's armed, it seems that the armaments have just been simplified because you did have a choice between either. You had the either shot carbine no matter what, and you had to choose between a sky cannon or a drill cannon. Now it's just saying it's sky ordnance. So I guess you just however you modeled it, that's how we're keeping it. So let's take a look at what the options used to be. You had a built-in either shot carbine for 12-inch, 2 attacks, 3s, 3s, -1, 2. And then you got the choice of a 15-inch weapon, which was 1 attack for the drill cannon, 3s, 3s, -3, 3, or sky cannon, 2 attacks, 4s, 3s, -1, 3. So now what you're getting is only 3 attacks. Now, at 15-inch range. So you've got an upgrade in range for the either shot carbine, but it stays the same for one of the other 2 options. And you're looking at either -1 attack in total if you had the carbines plus sky cannon, or the same amount of attacks if you had the drill cannon. That it's gone to 4s and 3s is the same profile as the sky cannon in terms of hit and wound, but it's a -1 to hit for either of the other 2 options, so that seems like a downgrade. And then the rend, we had rend 1 on the either shot carbines and the sky cannon, but rend 3 on the drill cannon. So this is in between. But we've got flat 3 damage, which is the same as what we had on the drill cannon and sky cannon. Overall, this feels a little bit like a downgrade, but I don't know. I'd have to do the math on it, which I haven't done ahead of time. But it seems like you lost just a little bit of punch there, but I don't know if it's a huge change. Maybe there will be some rules that interact with it. In terms of the bombs and boarding weapons, which sounds like we might be losing the bombs rule, it's 4 attacks, 4s, 4s, now -1 and D3. So in melee, you got a decent a bit better, but the boats aren't really known for being melee vehicles. That's not really what they do. But here we got a point of rend and then functionally double damage, but could spike and get 3 damage, triple damage. Now the rules that used to be on the Gunhauler, and by used to I mean on the existing War Scroll. Remember, that might change with the new Battle Scroll. Or, sorry, the new Battle Tome. The points might change with the Battle Scroll. There was a passive ability that let it protect ironclads and frigates. If it was within its combat range, it would be giving it a 6+ ward. And this unit itself. So it would also be getting the 6+ ward. You also had another passive ability for transport capacity, which we also have here, but it says it cannot transport any friendly units, which is the opposite direction I thought they'd go with it. It used to be able to transport 1 friendly KO unit, infantry unit with a model count of up to 5. If you don't know, every single KO unit that isn't a boat, at least at time of recording, is an infantry unit. So that was just the rest of the army. But a 1 unit of up to a model count of 5. So that would be like a non-reinforced version of Thunderers or either the 2 Balloon Boys, or it would be 1 single hero, is the idea. So also implicitly not Arcanaut Company, your kind of main battle line unit, if you want to call them battle line still. And then you had your movement phase ability. That was the bomb racks, which again, I'm assuming got melted into the melee profile here. But you picked an enemy unit that does not have fly and that you passed across this phase, so your movement phase only, and roll 4 dice for each 4+, inflict 1 mortal damage. So max 4, min 0, of course, but average 2. So let's see what all that got replaced with. You have a passive ability, Attack Squadron. While this unit is wholly within 12 inches of any other friendly gun haulers, it can use shoot abilities even if it used the run ability in the same turn. So remember, we can reinforce this to have 2 in the unit. So now a unit, as long as the other one hasn't died yet, as long as they're staying within coherency range, which I'm assuming they have to, they'll be wholly within 12 of each other. And then they both get run and shoot. I guess that's cool. It kind of gives us back the Gunhauler rule we used to have in 3rd edition, where you had a once per game like extra movement that kind of feels a little bit in line with that. So they can be kind of like flying around, and these 2 are 2 inches faster, right? So they're flying around with a run. One of them could auto run, I suppose. No, if it's the whole unit, they could auto run, which is putting 2 gun haulers at 20 inches, which could be kind of cool, plus a 15-inch range, so a 35-inch threat range is not bad. But remember, they're not transporting anyone. But to be fair, they had a hard time transporting people anyway, unless it was the heroes. And then now we've got any shooting phase, fighter vessels. If this unit used a shoot ability this phase, this unit can move d6 inches. It cannot end that move in combat. That's pretty cool. So you can kind of come on in and then you can shoot, and even with a covering fire, you'd be able to do this because it says any shooting phase. And then you would end up kind of moving away or closer. Say you did want to go in for combat, because you could always countercharge with that as long as you didn't run that same turn. I guess a redeploy, yeah, it couldn't have redeployed and shot, so then it wouldn't be applicable here because redeploy would turn that off. Or at least the way covering fire works would turn that off. So anyway, yeah, interesting. Does this change the situation for me with the Gunhauler? I mean, it gives it a more obvious that this is meant to be a gun platform, and I've always seen these as kind of mobile artillery pieces, especially now that we've lost the transport capacity ability. I mean, essentially the way you could do the math on this is having 4s and 3s cuts your output in a third. On average, so that means you could look at one of these as 1. So on average, it's doing 3 damage at -2 rend. That's before the save, and then you apply the rend based off of what that's doing. Is that enough? So a unit would be doing 6, maybe a little bit better with an all-out attack that you'd use on that. It kind of maybe wants to get into combat, but then again, I'd probably say not really, because a unit of 2 of these, 8 attacks at 4s, -1 D3 is not really doing a whole lot of work. You're getting a bunch of movement shenanigans kind of built in. I don't know. Someone who plays KO in this edition, let me know what you think about the new Gunhauler War Scroll, but it does seem like it has a little bit more utility, but if you were trying to use it to transport a small unit or a hero, I could see that being a bummer that that's gone. Of course, you could still keep using the old version of the War Scroll. You just can't reinforce it. And then it would be used to give the 6+ ward and those other things. So let me know what you guys think. Okay, so on to the Codright. The Codright was our, if I'm not mistaken, most recently added model to the KO range. The foot hero that literally hits you with a battle tome, as you see here. He was used to basically interact with, what were those called? The heroic actions you could make. Why am I forgetting what they were called? Anyway, the abilities you could use in your hero phase or whatever in 3rd edition. And he kind of has had a weird place since then. We'll talk about his full rule set in a second. Like all Dwarden here, he's got a 4-inch move, 5 health, 2 control, and 3+ save. Nothing changed there. And then if I scroll down to the keywords, I'm assuming those are the same too. Hero, Infantry, Order, KO, Dwarden, and Skyfarer. So those haven't changed. Let's take a look at his output. So he still has an either shot pistol, which still has shooting combat, 10-inch range, 2 attacks, 3s, -1/1. Nothing changed there. And the melee weapon is still the battle tome with 3 attacks, 4s, 4s, no rend, D3. So that all stayed the same. So let's talk about what his index version of the War Scroll says. And remember, this guy's price went up, at least with regards to the points that we currently know. So let's just take a look at that War Scroll the way it is, and then see if it really makes sense that the new changes would warrant a price increase. So as it is in the index, once per turn army ability, so you're not stacking it with 2 copies of these guys, in your hero phase only, declare, pick up to 3 visible friendly KO units to be the target. So there's no range, so that means anywhere on the board, they just have to be visible. Roll a dice for each target. On a 3-up, pick one of the following effects to apply to that target for the rest of the turn. So you're not rolling 1 3-up for everyone and then seeing if they all 3 get them, all or nothing. You get to roll for each. You had 3 different abilities. One was adding 2 to the target's control score. Again, that's not control characteristic. It's the total that you get after adding up the control characteristics of each of the models. Second ability was add 1 to run rolls and charge rolls for the target, which could be combined with like a run and shoot maybe, or a run and charge. And then there's the last one is no mortal damage is inflicted on the target by a retreat ability. So it's essentially giving you permission, only for the rest of the turn though, to be able to retreat without taking damage. I get why people probably weren't running the Codright much, because maybe +1 to run and charge is decent, but the rest of it just seems kind of meh, especially considering it only goes off on a 3+. It's nice that it had unlimited range, just had to be visible, but at the same time, I'm not very sold by that. Anyway, so what he got now is 2 any hero phase abilities. One of them is you give him D3 vexed points. So obviously we're going to be working out the vex points here in the next rule. So once per turn army. So this still isn't stacking, though. I guess you could have 2 guys each collecting their own Vex points and then taking turns spending them. So because this is happening twice per battle round, any hero phase, you're getting on an average of 4 per battle round. So anyway, any hero phase, all right, listen up. Declare, if this unit is wholly within 12 inches of a friendly non-hero KO unit, so that could be the boats as well, pick a visible enemy unit within 18 inches of this unit, so within 18 of the Codright himself, and then choose to spend either 3 or 6 vexed points. Pick one of the following effects to apply to the target, so the enemy unit, for the rest of the turn. Yeah, interesting, because this only is eligible to use if he's standing wholly within 12 inches of a friendly non-hero KO unit, but then that unit doesn't get picked as a target. It just allows the unit this ability to be used. So that's kind of interesting. I don't know. I mean, KO kind of flies together the whole time anyway, so the chances that you're off on your own are relatively slim, I think. But anyway, if you spend 3 or 6, it's going to have some different impacts here. So pick one of the following effects to apply to the target enemy unit for the rest of the turn, not until your following hero phase. Do you see how fast they are going? Is the name of the rule. If you spend 3 vexed points, subtract D3 from the target's move characteristic. If you spend 6, half the target's move characteristic. Okay, so that reminds me a little bit of the Navigator slowing people down. Out of curiosity, I'm going to double check that the Navigator still works the way he used to. So the Etheric Navigator's ability was inflict D3 mortal damage on each enemy target. If any damage points are inflicted, half its move. So I don't know. I mean, the fact that you have to save up to make this happen, and only if you get the bigger amount. You can think of this as kind of like a prayer, because it's kind of got a low points value and a big points value, and he gets to do it every turn. Although any turn, any hero phase, so your opponent's hero phase is kind of unique. Vizek Scour from Skaven is the only priest that's able to do that for free to gain points in the opponent's turn without using a magical intervention. So, I mean, I guess that's cool if you want to compare it to a prayer. But anyway, the fact that you have to spend the big version of it in order to do it is maybe kind of a bummer when the Navigators... you have to roll a certain number of 1s or 6s to get those abilities. So it's not guaranteed, but it goes automatically to having the movement's characteristic and doing some damage. As long as you did some damage to that unit. Okay, and then the other ability is if you spend 3, subtract 1 from wound rolls for the target's combat attacks, so not shooting. And if you spend 6, subtract 1 from the rank characteristic of their melee weapons, and subtract 1 from wound rolls from the target's combat attacks. Interesting. Yeah, is that good? Yeah, I mean, the move is always nice, so I guess you could stack it with, like, the Navigator, because the Navigator's ability was also once per turn army, so you could be doing this to 2 different units. Maybe that's the best argument for this. Remember, getting up to 6 vexed points on average would take you 3 turns worth of doing this, and then you would have to do this. But it could take longer, it could be quicker. So you're not necessarily getting half the movement's characteristic right off the bat. Otherwise, D3 from the target's move characteristic is not really doing all that much, especially for the units you're most scared of, like the big guys, or the fast guys. But -1 from rend and from wound rolls is pretty nice and would help keep your army alive. So I don't know. People, let me know what you're thinking. We've got a kind of fake priest here. He kind of works a little bit like a priest in the army. What are you guys thinking? And is there any version of reality where you take 2 Codrights? Remember, he can be taken as an Italics hero in another hero's regiment, just so that you could be having one save up the points. Meanwhile, you're using the other one to get the ability, and they keep trading places. Also interesting with spending the points is it says nothing about when you blow those points that you lose the rest of what's in your pool. So let's say you had 7 saved up and you use 6. You apparently, from the rules as written, would still have 1 in the pool, whereas priests lose all their points. So it would help set you up for getting it off better next time as well. Anyway, let me know what you guys are thinking of this. It's interesting. I don't know if it's changing the way KO plays or anything, but it definitely has some amount of interesting play. I'd say it's an upgrade. Okay. So, interestingly, we do not have a battle formation. I think this is only our second faction thus far, together with Stormcast, that hasn't got a new battle formation. Of course, who knows what we'll get in the battle tome. But we did get their equivalent of mount traits, monsters traits, but now they're called Sky Vessel upgrades, which makes total sense. So let's look at those first, since those are totally new. And then we got some new artifacts. All right, so we've got the first that's a reaction. A friendly unit within 12 inches of this unit, remember this unit has to be one of your Sky Vessels, was picked to be the target of an enemy spell ability. Voidstone Repulsor Vents is what this is called. Roll a dice on a 4-up, ignore the effect of the spell on that friendly unit, and inflict D3 mortal damage on the caster. This unit can use this ability more than once per phase, but you can only roll once for each friendly unit per spell cast. This is a great one, I think. Put this on a big old ironclad. Your whole army's hanging around that ironclad pretty much the whole time. They're definitely going to be wholly within 12. It doesn't even say wholly within 12. And if they're picked to be the target of a spell ability, and so this would also include the boat itself, by the way, which would be really handy for KO players that are worried about armies that can turn off CPs with a spell command ability use, because that you're really reliant on that redeploy with the boat. And then you can ignore that spell on a 4-up and maybe even throw some damage back on the caster. And this is giving you a little bit more protection against magic heavy armies. That said, it's still on a 4-up, which is a 50-50. But if they targeted multiple units that turn, say it was a Tzeentch type army, they targeted your boat, and then they target something else, whatever. Yeah, you'd get to spread it out and keep doing it. And remember the wording at the bottom there. This unit can use this ability more than once per phase, but you can only roll once for each friendly unit per spell cast. So that means, yeah, that if that friendly unit was kept getting targeted by new different spells, it would be it would still be able to roll that 4-up. I wonder with an unlimited spell, if say they had 3 casters that could cast the same spell, I think that would, as per this rule, they would ignore the first one maybe, but then after that they wouldn't be able to use it. And even if you failed the ability, you wouldn't be able to use the ability again on the other ones. That's my understanding of how that interaction with rules would work. Let me know what you guys think. Okay, the second Sky Vessel upgrade is going to be our Blazebeard and Sons ejector pod. If I'm not mistaken, Blazebeard and Sons is one of the companies that makes these things, and we've seen that before, so that's kind of cool. Declare, if this unit is in combat, so the Sky Vessel is in combat, pick a visible friendly KO hero wholly within 6 to be the target. Remove the target from the battlefield, then set it up again wholly within 18 of this unit and more than 9 inches from enemy units. It's kind of interesting because you're just, and it's a once per battle any combat phase ability, so you're scooting your hero out of combat. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how often. Like, I feel like if you're stuck in combat, saving one dude is probably not enough to use as your one choice for a Sky Vessel upgrade. But someone let me know, how often would it have changed the complexion of the game if you had been able to save that admiral or that navigator or whoever it was and just kind of teleport them outside into a safe spot? Maybe you could steal an objective with it, but to me, the heroes are not the main focal point of the game, and what really falls apart is that the boat dies or that your big block of Thunderers dies or whatever it might be. This doesn't seem to be as impactful for me, but someone who has experience with how important a foot hero can be, let me know, or even one in a balloon. Okay, and then lastly, any charge phase. If this unit charges this phase, so also in your opponents, if you do a counter charge, pick an enemy unit in combat with it to be the target. Roll a number of dice equal to the unmodified charge roll. For each 4+, inflict 1 mortal damage on the target. So on average, you're doing 3.5 with a roll of a 7. But of course, it depends on what you needed to hit that charge. So if you had like a 10-inch charge, then this is doing nothing if you don't hit it, but then it's on average doing 5 or more. So it really depends on what the conditions were. Personally, I think I'm going for the Voidstone Repulsor Vents every single time. Magic can really mess up a KO's mission. However many mortal damage you're going to do on the charge with, say, a frigate or something seems relatively minimal compared to how much of a deal breaker it could be to stop a spell here or there. But someone let me know what they think. But I'm going Voidstone Repulsor Vents every time. Okay, and then artifacts. And I think it's worth pointing out in KO, this is one of the few factions that can actually take multiple artifacts. But let's take a look at how that works. So if I'm not mistaken, the only way KO can choose multiple artifacts is if you take the Engineers Guild Expeditionary Force, which has a once per battle deployment phase ability where you pick a friendly non-unique KO Overlord, KO hero, KHARADRON Overlords hero that does not have an artifact of power. So implicitly, you would have had to have a dude that hasn't already, had one. So if you had maybe only unique heroes in addition to this guy, then this guy would have gotten one for free. So you keep that in mind. Give that hero one artifact of power from the Inventions of the Skyports, and that says this artifact of power is given to the unit during the deployment phase, not during army composition. So the interesting thing about this is it specifically references not just a generic other artifact of power, but one from Inventions of the Skyports, which is the name of the other set of artifacts of power. Because of that, that means that you wouldn't be able to choose your second one from this list, but you could always start with this one. So you could get one from this one, if I'm reading this correctly, because this has got a different name. You're choosing one from this one, and then if you had that battle formation, you're choosing one from the other list. So it's not going to feel like this is taking something away from that, unless, of course, you wanted to take two from the other one. So let's talk about what was in the other set of artifacts of power, the Inventions of the Skyports. You had three. You had a once per battle, any shooting or combat phase. Pick an enemy monster within 12 of this unit to be this target. Until the start of your next turn, subtract 1 from the number of dice rolled when making charge rolls for the target. Yeah, okay. That's a good one if you are expecting to go into monsters and you really need to reduce the chance that it gets into combat with you. You also had a once per battle, you're shooting Celestial Burst Grenade. This was kind of the standard setting here. Pick an enemy unit within 12 inches of this unit to be the target, and then you just automatically turn off word rolls for the target for the rest of the turn. Like, it's kind of a no-brainer for KO. And then the other one was the Voidstone Orb. Once per battle reaction, opponent declared a spell ability for a wizard within 30. That spell is unbound. So we've got, and that was also a strong one. So we've got two things we have to keep an eye on here. One is if you're not taking the formation, if you choose to use one of these three new artifacts of power, you do not have access to the other three. If you're taking the formation that has the extra artifact you can take, and you have a hero that could take it, so two heroes that can take artifacts, then what you're functionally doing is saying, I'm going to take one from either two from the old set, the one we just talked about, or I'm taking one from this one, and then I have to take one from the old set, the one that's in the index. So keep that in mind. Okay, but let's look at the new set here. So we've got a once per battle, your hero phase, spell in a bottle is back, baby. This unit can use a summon ability from the manifestation lore you picked during army composition as if it had Wizard 1. Instead of making a casting roll for that summon ability, the casting roll is 7 and cannot be modified. That summon ability cannot be unbound. All right, interesting, because I'd never really thought about it before, but evidently you can choose a manifestation lore even if you don't have a wizard in your army. I guess that makes sense. Is KO this whole time has been able to choose a manifestation lore, but then it wouldn't make any sense to use it. Kind of like I can pick a prayer lore and Skaven even if I don't have a priest or any other army like that. Now, so this unit can use a summon ability from the manifestation lore you picked during army composition as if it had Wizard 1. Instead of making casting roll, so it goes off on a 7. Now keep in mind that means anything that goes off on an 8, like a Kronspine or a Purple Sun, which would be great for KO, I think, in general, or a Suffocating Gravetide, which have casting roll of 8, would not go off. And it can also not be unbound. So you're going to get to put it into play any one of the other endless spells, generic endless spells. And it could be that we have manifestation lores of our own sort that come in the new Battle Tome, but I would assume that you wouldn't need a spell in the bottle to make that happen. I'm thinking about maybe like if you have a navigator who's kind of like our wizardy dude in the army, our tech dude, or maybe if you have an engine master, one of the two, then you have access to like technological manifestations, whatever that would be. And then I suppose this rule would interact only with a true manifestation lore, and then KO would have their own version of whatever those technological manifestations would be. Who knows? Who knows how this is going to interact? It could also be that KO doesn't end up getting a manifestation lore at all, that they'll be the only army at the end of the updates that we're doing nowadays that doesn't get their own kind of manifestation lore, but probably will get their own terrain piece. Anyway, I like it. People have to let me know which of the generic endless spells they're thinking would be most applicable for this. I also have a theory that GW is trying to get to a point where the endless spells become legend, like the generic ones, because every army, implicit in every army getting their own set, is that every army would just choose their own, and then that becomes like part of your battle traits, essentially. That you always end up taking your own manifestation lore. And if that's the case, I would assume that they would get rid of the generic units as well, the manifestations. If that's the case, then this doesn't make a whole lot of sense unless it does have overlap with the new KO one. Anyway, let me know what you think, though. Next up is the Karst Bana Ether Powered Combat Rig. Again, this is an artifact on a hero. This unit has a 5+ ward, which I don't think any hero in KO has access to, even a 6+ ward. In addition, add 1 to the tax characteristic of this unit's melee weapons. Now, unfortunately, one of the better fighters you've got is Brock, if I'm not mistaken, but because he's unique, he can't do it. And Dreki has also got one of the better shots and not bad melee weapons, so neither of those guys are able to take these. I think the next best option is going to either be your Injure Master and Dirigible Suit or the Admiral. Let's take a look. So on the Admiral, obviously a 5+ ward is great. On the Admiral, the melee weapon adding 1 attack is going from 3 attacks to 4 attacks at 3s, 2s, -1, 3. Not bad. On the Injure Master and Dirigible Suit, he's got 1 set of melee weapons that's going from 4 to 5 attacks, 3s, 3s, -2, 2. And then maybe we'll take a look at the Injure Master in Dirigible, not Dirigible, the other one, Injure Harness. Let's see. He is 3 attacks going to 4, 4s, 2s, -2, 3. So also a decent option for this. Certainly not bad. Is it better, though, than Celestial Burst Grenade? No. And I would also say Spell in the Bottle is not better than the Celestial Burst Grenade. Voidstone Orb depends on how you're built, but now that you've got access to the Voidstone Repulsor Vents, that helps a little bit. That helps a lot, actually. So, I mean, I like it, but it's more of a hero hammer thing, but it's also defensive, keeping that hero alive. Again, we're seeing 2 hero, keeping hero alive abilities now, which, again, I don't know if that's really how KO's playing these days, where if the heroes die, your army falls apart. I think if it's the boat dies, you fall apart, but someone let me know. And then lastly, once per battle, your movement phase, this will be the Emberstone Flare. Pick a friendly KO unit that has fly and is not in combat to be the target. So this doesn't have any range on it. So remember, even though a hero is carrying this, it doesn't even have to be visible. You just pick a KO unit that has fly, so that could be either of any of your balloons units, or it could be one of the sky vessels. Remove the target from the battlefield and set it up again wholly within 9 inches of this unit and more than 9 inches of enemy units. So the implied range here is it could be anywhere on the battlefield, but then he pulls them back to them and gets them back in his range, the hero that's carrying this. Pulling an Ironclad over here. I guess you could use this in combo with the Ejector Pod. So in say your enemy's combat phase, you eject the hero, send him far away, and then assuming things survive for the next thing, you could have him once per battle in your movement phase pull the boat towards you. Now remember, this would count as a setup, and then the boat couldn't move. It could, however, move before you do this. Not that that's, in this situation, all that interesting. Maybe a retreat, whatever. This has maybe got some cool tech in it. I just don't know. If I had to pick one of these, say I did the formation where I pick one of these and pick one of the others, I'd still choose Celestial Burst Grenade, I think, for that one shooting phase where you turn off the ward. Yeah. I don't know. I'm torn between maybe Spell in a Bottle, maybe this guy, but Voidstone Orb is also really strong, especially combined with this. So Voidstone Orb plus the threat of a 4-up Spell Ignore really makes a Magic army think twice about which spells they're going to do, especially if you keep holding back that Voidstone Orb for some time. So I don't know. KO players, let me know what you're thinking. I don't hate these by any means, but it's always a question of what you're trading to be able to take these. And having a formation that lets you take one of this one and one of the other is still pretty nice. Personally, I think this is the biggest upgrade we've seen today. I don't know if the Gunhauler is strong enough to really make me want to play a bunch of Gunhaulers, and the Codright probably also not. But I'm always open to suggestions from you guys. Thank you so much for the feedback, especially positive feedback or constructive feedback. And if we do have Iron Jaws tomorrow, then it'll be Iron Jaws. Let me know what you think the Trade in Teeth is all about. But that sounds like it probably is what's going on. Anyway, until next time, guys, Ryan out.